tears, flatulence, and more tears. You are watching Romance Recap on Reader Seeks Romance Channel, and we're discussing Hometowns Part 2 and Women Tell All on The Golden Bachelor, Season 1, Episode 7. I am Liz Donatelli.
And I am Tiffany Current.
Join us as we discuss and dissect the second chance romance journey of widower Gerry Turner as he searches for a partner with whom to share the sunset years of his life. Listen and subscribe to Romance Recap on Podbean and all podcast apps. Watch and subscribe to Romance Recap on Reader Seeks Romance's YouTube channel. Hello, Tiffany.
Here we are. I've got to say this right off the bat. I enjoyed the episode, but I feel like my word of the week is anticipation, because I thought this was the finale episode and it was not. And so I'm just like, can we just get to it? Can I just see who he picks already?
I thought that this was the second to last episode, and apparently we have two more. So I have to be honest, I too am kind of over it.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know what's going to happen. So aside from anticipation, as you mentioned, my initial reaction was, I am so glad this whole episode is going to be filled with Jesse Palmer. That's where I was coming.
Opposite reaction. This was the only time this whole season where I was like, Jesse, enough with your questions. I don't want your questions. I just want to hear the women talk. I just want to hear the women talk.
Oh my God. I have such an attraction to him. It's frightening.
It is frightening. I agree. Yes.
It is frightening. The other thing is, like, I don't usually dig these tell-all episodes. Like, I fast forwarded through a lot of the replays. Yeah, I'm not a fan. Like, it was entertaining, but I think it's more entertaining when it's one of those reality shows with a lot of drama, right?
Yeah.
Because then you get people like getting all up in each other's faces. But it was entertaining, but it wasn't, just watching the replays of things.
There was no drama. There was no drama. But what I did appreciate, there was a lot of love, a lot of friendship, a lot of hope, I think was the big word, and also being visible. So let's dive right into it. They actually opened the show on Sandra doing her specialty of her ohm, but instead of saying ohm, saying the F word, of course.
Should we do it one last time? We might not get
one last time.
A chance. Okay.
Ready? I enjoyed that. And then I liked how they were kind of going back through the replay. And I like how they cut to Susan and she was embarrassed of watching herself say the 6 inches line. I thought that was funny. Funny.
And I didn't quite understand. She said that her son, I guess, was embarrassed or must have said something to her. And she said, I should have said 8 inches. So I was thinking, did his son say, 6 inches and it is too small? She said 8? I don't know.
I get it. That's interesting. He was like you. He did the research. Like, come on. Like, that's not even the average. It should be bigger.
Yeah. So I thought that was an interesting. I didn't even think we were going to revisit that, but apparently.
It was of note. So I think Jesse, after like kicking off to Sandra, he actually goes to April and kind of like needles her for doing the kiss. Like, what does your grandchildren think? I'm thinking, Jesse, we all know that her grandchildren think a lot of things about her, and they are not concerned about kissing. That's the least of their concerns.
Yes, he asked the same thing of Gerry later on. Is what did your were you conscious, I guess, of what your grandkids would say? And he was like, granddaughters be damned.
Yeah. He's like, I'm kissing. I'm taking those kisses. It's like, okay. Yes. But it was interesting because you wouldn't ask that question to like a 30-year-old, right? So it was just kind of an interesting thing of like, are you slightly ashamed of this kiss? And they're just like, no, man, I'm an adult person. I'm kissing. I'm enjoying myself.
Quick question. Nice. I know that Jesse Palmer probably isn't just coming up with these questions on the fly. Does he have an earpiece where they're feeding him the questions?
I didn't see his earpiece, but all hosts usually have an earpiece, so I would imagine that he does, because he has to know when to cut to commercial and etc. I know that you have a fascination with Jesse, but he's not that witty. I'm sorry.
I know, but he is sensitive, Tiffany, and we will get to that later.
I guess he is. I don't know if that was a real I'm telling you, maybe I was in a mood today because I was frustrated that it was not the finale, but I'm like, Jesse was kind of annoying me today. But let's go from there. We also see Nancy, which I liked her statement, is that she said that being on the show got her children to see her as more than just a mom or a grandmother, but
Yeah.
as a single woman. And I thought that's nice.
Yes, yes. I mean, each lady really had a fantastic insight to share. It almost felt a little scripted, like they were told, "Hey, you better come up with something to say." But each one, like, and none of them had any vitriol
Mhm.
towards Gerry. Like, all like the whole spirit of the show was harmony and love and support and
Yeah.
caring. Just before you continue, I just want to make a note that I think there was a couple of people on the panel that said
Yeah.
nothing. And I was
I,
wondering, were they
yes, you're
told like
correct.
keep it shut or what? Like just sit there or
I don't know because maybe they didn't. I think a lot of the women had to speak up. So maybe they didn't speak up. Maybe they would assume they'd get a question and they didn't, or maybe
Ah,
they said
okay.
something and it was cut out. We don't really know. But there were some women who did not, who
Yeah,
were
like
not featured.
yes, like Patty and Pamela. And I was like, I forgot about Pamela. I was
I
looking
think
for
the people
Peggy.
that weren't featured on the show probably weren't featured in this tell-all
Yeah.
either.
It was interesting. Who didn't show up and who did. So
I will say at some point we do
mhm.
get to your favorite, Kathy. And of course, Jesse asked her about Teresa, and I'm like, what's she gonna say? What's she gonna
I
say?
know. I was very impressed. First of all, I thought she looked great.
She
I
looked
thought she
great.
looked great. I was very impressed that uh she wasn't doubling down on her past behaviors. She admitted I could have been a bit more delicate
I know, I wrote that down too. Yep.
with Teresa. So I think she realized in looking back, I mean, I guess with all of us, if we were to have someone play back a moment in our life, you're like, gee, I guess I should have handled that differently, or maybe I came off really rough. So I
Yeah.
appreciated that she said that. So I
She
like
said
her
it,
better now. I like her
but
better.
she stood by it. She's like, I stand by what I said. I just could have said it differently. What I loved is that while
Yeah.
she was talking, Susan's like, but you're not delicate or something or other. It was very cute, their
Yes,
friendship.
they're very close apparently.
They're
And
very
Susan
close. Yeah.
even said like you have a big heart. Like she was like
Yeah.
throwing things in there. And yeah, no, I actually thought Kathy was going to get a lot more questions.
I did too. I
Yeah.
thought she was gonna get called up on the couch. I'm like, how is she not being called up on the couch? What's that about?
Yes. It's interesting that because usually, the producers pick at the little bit of drama and try to make it
Yeah,
bigger. So I really thought that they were going to have, a whole big thing. But being Teresa wasn't there because she's one of the finalists, I guess they figured, what's the point? Like if Teresa was there, I think they might have tried to instigate a bit
that's
more,
fair.
you know?
I don't know what the choice was, but some of the choices of who they brought up on stage, I thought was like, I don't think she deserves that much screen time. We'll get to that in a moment.
Gotcha.
But from there, I'll say I did notice they decided to do this whole thing with Susan and her gas. So there was a lot of cut to Susan farting here, farting there, farting everywhere.
It
It was
was a
crazy.
bit much, and it turned
Yes.
into this big debate of what was the cause of her extreme flatulence. So it came down to her Susan's meatballs or Edith's guacamole. So your girl Edith actually had more screen time, I think, talking
She got
about
a lot of screen time.
guacamole.
She's
Yeah.
like, I don't know if she makes her own guacamole. I don't know if she's
Yes,
promoting
she
a brand, but
does.
she said guacamole a lot. But it made it seem like I think was it who was the girl? The one was it Natasha? I don't remember her name, but somebody's like, I had your guacamole and I did not fart.
Yeah,
But they were defending the guacamole, and even though Susan's like, it was the guac, but I think it was the meatball.
I think she was fine eating the meatballs because she's been
Mm,
eating these meatballs for a long time. So your body gets used to that. I'm almost positive it was the guac because she isn't usually eating it in truckloads. She said she
that's
was eating like a
possible.
lot of it.
Yeah, she was
I
eating a
mean,
lot of it.
meatballs, maybe you have 3 or 4 in a sitting. I don't, depending.
To me, it sounds like everyone in this freaking house had gas. So maybe it was neither. Maybe it was just something else that they ate. So I don't know what it was, but there was a lot of talk about
There
gas
was
on
a
this
lot.
show.
And at the end, there is a blooper montage at the end of this episode with all the women in the house either burping or farting. And Sandra apparently elicited this fart that sounded completely made up. It sounded like it was just the audio was just added. It sounded unreal.
It
Um,
sounded unreal. It sounded like we were watching one of those sketches of like I
yes,
don't know, like Monty Python or something or other. It was
it
very
was like a
like
fart machine.
ridiculous. I get it, and they wanted to have a funny moment, but it was too much for me. It was
Yeah.
too much for me.
That just showed how little they had for this tell-all because you wouldn't normally spend this much time. So at this point, I was like, oh boy, I have to start fast forwarding to get to the second part of the rose ceremony. But yeah.
I know. Let's continue on quickly through it, though. I do like how they all talked about hope and inspiring, and how Susan said that she was able to reach people to like just get up and live. And in response to that, we got a very special video from Kris Jenner.
Yes. And what I thought was interesting is the camera was zeroed in on Jesse's phone that was playing this video message
I know,
from
that was
Kris
super
Jenner.
weird.
And I was like, but I don't understand why the camera is choosing. Like, they couldn't have thrown that up on a big, maybe because it was locked. No, they could have like.
I don't know what it was. I think it was a mix. I don't know what was going on because you weren't actually hearing the audio from that. I don't know what's going on. That was a weird
It was strange. Yeah. I mean, do you think Kris Jenner is really a fan of The Bachelor and the franchise?
Is, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I bought it.
Okay. Because, she said about how she and the family are big fans and she applauded the women because of them being older adults, and then gave the special shout out to Susan because a lot of people have compared the two, that they look similar. Yeah.
They do look very similar. So let's cut from there let's get to the actual woman on the couch.
Yes.
One of the first people they pull to the couch is Joan. And right when they put her on the couch, I'm like, all right, they're clearly setting her up to be the next Golden Bachelor. I mentioned that before. I'm like, they're clearly setting her up because there's no reason that she got the couch and Kathy didn't. I'm just saying.
Right. But again, being Kathy doesn't have Teresa there to play off of, maybe they're like, let's not do the Kathy thing. Or maybe Kathy threatened them with legal action. I wouldn't be surprised if she did that.
I think it was of note. They brought her up. She reiterated her story that she had to leave because of her daughter. And what I thought was interesting is that Jesse asked her, do you think if you would have stayed, it would have worked out? And she says, yes, like he made me feel visible.
Yes. I thought that was an interesting answer too, because she said it very genuinely, like, I think, we would have had a chance. I thought at that point, they were going to like reveal that, hey, we're going to give you a second chance and we're going to throw you back in. But of course, this was taped after, I guess, everything else already.
That's correct.
After you already picked someone. But there was a part of me that's like, I don't know, they're going to just like throw her back in. But you're right. Maybe they are starting to set her up as the Golden Bachelorette.
That's what I think is happening here.
Because here's the thing, Marina also, I thought being they had Joan on the couch, maybe they'd put Marina on because Marina also left due to family issues.
Nope.
I didn't know, but no.
Just Joan. But from there, we actually have the most heartbreaking one. They have Ellen sit down with Jesse.
Oh my God. I cried when she was, she was talking about Roberta because Jesse obviously asked Ellen, how do you feel about Gerry? How are you doing? And Ellen expressed genuine gratitude to Gerry for treating her like a princess. And now she knows she's worthy and she's really excited to go out and date again and find a partner. And then Jesse asked about Roberta. And oh my God, Ellen starts saying that after the filming of the season, she went to visit Roberta. She has stage 4 cancer. She was in the hospital, and Ellen said, I believe she was holding on to life because she wanted to watch the episodes when they aired. And she told, oh my God, she told Roberta, let go. It's fine to let go. We can watch the show from different places. Oh my God. I was crying. I was like, I had to pause it. I was like blowing my nose. I was just so, and then you turn to Jesse, my sensitive man.
He was crying, but I was like, are they real tears though? I don't know.
Do you think he was getting a message in his little earpiece saying, okay, cue the crying? Because
time to wipe your eye. I wasn't sure. Maybe he was impacted. And I was actually moved by that as well, but I didn't start crying until they cut to the audience and you see Courtney, Roberta's daughter, and I was like, tears. And then when she said her thing that Ellen, you deserve love and you're a great friend, I was like, all right, I'm done. I will say from there, Gerry finally comes out and he's like excited and happy, and the women are excited and happy to see him. And of course, Jesse goes around and says to those women like, Joan, what do you think? Ellen, what do you think? And they actually all were very kind to him, even though, that he let at least Ellen go.
Yeah, no, each one of them had nothing but gratitude in their hearts. But here's the thing, they also asked only specific women.
That is
If they had
correct.
asked certain people like April, I wonder,
Or Kathy.
or Kathy, right? Although each one, no matter what anyone said, they always came back to, we wish nothing but the best for Gerry. He's
Yes.
fantastic. He's got a kind heart. He's a wonderful man. I think it was, who was it who mentioned that they had hope now that there were other men of his age who
Maybe
might
Ellen? I
be
wasn't
like,
sure.
maybe it was Sandra or something saying, "Oh, I have hope that there are other men like you out there at
Oh,
your
it's
age."
possible.
I'm
Yeah.
like, everything was so complimentary. And thanking, and each one of them like thank you for making me feel special. Thank you for
Yeah.
making, seeing me, making me feel
Yeah.
seen. And they talked a lot about not being invisible because older people tend to be overlooked.
That's true.
Um, and Gerry said, we're not invisible. We made history together. I miss all of you. I think about all of you. He was talking like a real Lothario,
I
He's like,
know
oh, I think
he's
about all of
enjoying his
our
life.
time together. Yeah.
I know he's really gotten used to this role, I'll tell you that much. But yes, that is very true.
Yes.
It was a nice moment, but can we get into it? Can we get into it?
Oh my God. I am
Can we
still
get into this?
devastated. I'm still devastated for her.
So we watched the rose ceremony, and right away, Gerry gives the rose to Teresa. I'm watching this video. We realize that Faith, who I'm in love with, is now off the
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
What I found to be of note is when he walks her out to the car, they both seemed very different. Like it was almost like he barely said anything to her. She didn't say that much to him. He wasn't even crying that much at that point. I feel like something may have happened off screen, something may have happened beforehand. Their energy there in that moment where we watched it was different than when I was used to seeing them together.
I agree. And I also wondered if something happened off screen. If it
Yes,
did, they gave no inkling of it
I
in the
agree.
women tell all or even in the rose ceremony. Like there was no inkling. First of all, Faith admits in the camera she was numb. So she
Yes,
was in such shock. She, first of all, she was very poised, very self possessed. She handled this in the classiest way possible. Cause I thought maybe
absolutely.
she would like, oh, it was,
Yeah.
Faith was very like calm about it.
Something was different. Something was
Yes,
different. It made
something
me
was
think like, did
different.
something happen before this rose ceremony that they didn't show us because it was such a weird way that they interacted
Yeah.
when he let her go. I don't know. That
Yeah.
was
And
weird.
it's like he almost tried to explain, but he couldn't really explain. And then he's
Yes.
just saying that he's just like, oh, it's been a joy getting to know you. And I'm like,
Yes.
geez, that's,
Yes.
I was
I
like,
wrote it down. It's like it was like he was like saying goodbye to someone he barely knew. It was
yeah,
interesting. Like that's what I'm like, something happened. Something happened that
yeah,
was not on camera that we
right.
missed.
And,
We don't
and
know the
Faith,
full story.
and Faith just said, I wish you well. I think she just wanted
Yes.
out of there, and I don't blame her. And, they hug and she goes to the limo. And what I thought was really interesting is that she said to the camera, it will be a while before I can figure it all out. Maybe it was
Hmm.
all in my head. So I think that she was trying, she was just so shocked.
I know.
How could I, like, did I envision make up all the stuff that we said to each other in Hometowns Part One? She said she was ready to marry him. And
Yep.
what broke my heart even more is that she felt worse for her kids, for her
I
sons,
know. I
because
know.
she knew that they would be worried for her and that they were so happy knowing she had found someone. And watching her break down about that,
I
that
know.
really got to me.
That's
That really
tough.
got to me. And then they had the picture in a picture. So they were showing the rose
I
ceremony
know.
and then the picture of her in real time watching it with Jesse, and she's crying in both of them. And I was like, she's crying over her crying. I said, I can't take this. This is too much.
It was a lot. And what was I thought supportive of the women is when they cut back to the studio, all the women were saying, I love you, I love you, I love you,
Yes.
Faith, like trying to help her out. And
Yeah,
then at that moment, because I think we all kind of knew this was coming at this point because we read spoilers, let's be honest.
we did. Yeah.
But at that point, Jesse says, are you ready to see Gerry? And she's like, no, obviously not.
Yes, I know. She was whispering to him before I think she knew they were on. Did you? I rewound it. She was like whispering, like, I don't know. And he's like, okay, are you ready? Like, because then he realized that they were
and
on.
then she's like, no, I'm not ready. Can we have more time? They bring out Gerry in this moment. It is such an interesting to see his transformation from a couple minutes ago when he was like, I'm the Bachelor. The moment he walked out on this stage, already his eyes were filling with tears. When he went up to her and they hugged, I was crying because he was crying, she was crying, he whispered something in her ear which I couldn't make out, and just seeing them hug that intensely, I was like, dude, what did you do, Gerry? Like, what did you do?
Faith was sobbing. I thought they were going to cut. They let the camera go and they kept it in. She was sobbing first of all, you could hear a pin drop in the audience.
Yes.
Absolute silence.
I know.
She was sobbing. He was crying. And all I'm thinking of is that, Gerry, why did you do this to each other? Why? And I feel as if there was something mentioned at was it something that I think Faith told Jesse, something to the effect of, I felt like we could have worked everything out. We could have worked things out. Did you catch that?
She did say like an aside, which indicated to me something was that she said, maybe it was naive of me not to think about things, but we could have worked out the logistics or something.
I think it's
whatever she said made me think they had some sort of a conversation or something happened that maybe she didn't fully connect, and that's why he did make it work, because she did say that to him, like that's what it. So something happened that we didn't see, guys. So I'm just simply saying, if somebody has the tape, show me, because something happened.
I would love to see the uncut tape. Yeah.
They're sitting on the couch together and she's touching him. And then at one point she realizes that she's touching him. She says, I'm sorry. It's hard for me not to touch you. And I was like, and you could tell that he was restraining himself from touching her.
It was heart-wrenching. It was captivating. Quick question before I go on with a few of my observations.
Additional adjectives, yes.
Did you feel as if Faith was wearing a revenge dress?
Oh my God, Liz. No, I think she was just wearing
a beautiful, sexy,
that was beautiful,
cleavagey dress. And I feel like she was almost wearing it in a passive-aggressive way of saying, look what you missed. I think it might have been a mild revenge dress.
I don't think it was a revenge dress. I think it's just Faith dressing however Faith wanted to dress, or it's the producers. Faith to me seems like such a nice, genuine person. I don't think she would do that. I think there's other people on the show that would, but I don't think she would do it. But at some point, she's talking to him, trying to figure out what happened. And she's, from day one, we felt a connection. She's like, but the minute that you didn't give me the rose, it felt like it was destroyed completely.
Yes.
And then she said, like, I would have walked away with you and just lived the rest of my life with you if you picked me in that moment. And I was like, oh, Faith.
Oh God, I know. I got chills with everything that they were saying to each other.
I know.
Yes. And what I thought was interesting is that, I don't know if maybe Gerry should have said less in this moment. I'll be honest. Because he said that when I told you I loved you, I meant it. It was genuine. Yes. So it's like, first of all, him just even saying loved in the past tense must have cut her deeply hearing on television. And he goes on to say that in not picking 2 of the 3 finalists, it doesn't mean that those women were any less wonderful or any less lovable or any less important. It just means that the one he picked was right. And I was like, I don't think you should have said it like that.
I think he probably could have worded it better, but I understood what he was saying, because he wasn't even saying that you weren't in my top 2, which is of note. He didn't say I felt closer to these other 2 women.
Yes, he did not say that. Yeah.
He said I had to figure out which one was, I guess, the one that he can be with. So I appreciated him saying that. I did think it was interesting that he didn't say that I felt closer to these other 2 women, because that's usually what they say. I felt closer to these other 2. Yes. He said I had to decide which one was my number 1, which indicates that maybe he'd already decided his number 1. Yeah. And then that was that.
As far as I'm concerned, his heart chose Faith, but his head chose Teresa, and he listened to his head.
I don't know if he chose to read. Oh, you mean for the
For the second rose. Yeah, no,
like,
I mean, I don't know who the final he finally picks, but in that moment, I'm saying he went with his head over his heart going into the final round with,
I will say, which is what I always said, which is I think that he potentially had a closer feeling toward Faith.
Yeah.
But per what she said, he wasn't sure if they can work things out logistically or whatever. And so he decided, I don't want to have more heartbreak by spending more time with her.
Correct.
So I'm going to let her go. That's my personal opinion on it. I don't know if it's true, but that's what I think.
I thought it was interesting. I don't know if you wrote this as a note, but Gerry mentions what really, really upset him about the whole situation.
I know.
And I was like, leave it to a man to say it has something to do with themselves, in some way.
But good for him, because she, at the end of that, was comforting him. I'm like,
I know,
because
he was upset. He said he broke a promise to her family, which was to keep Faith's heart safe. He's like, I broke the promise. I was like, okay, enough of, like, honestly, in that moment, I was a little bit like, okay, Gerry, let's not put it back on you now.
It's not, you broke this woman's heart. Faith is an amazing person.
And you're right. And she was comforting him. And she's like, and she said, I don't feel deceived. My family doesn't feel like you deceived them. And I questioned something. When this all first happened, because obviously there's been time that has passed between the rose ceremony recording and Women Tell All. You can't tell me when she was passed over for Teresa for that second rose, you don't think she felt deceived? Because I would have.
I don't know, because I still stand by the fact that something was said that we didn't get to see that maybe put things more into perspective. I feel like something was potentially said, and maybe in that exact moment, she's probably like, whoa, I thought we could have gotten past this situation that we talked about that the rest of the audience never got to see.
Yeah.
But I think she probably had time to think about it, and because she actually said it to Jesse, that I think we could have worked things out, whatever that thing was.
So you think she kind of knew deep down, she kind of figured, out like, okay, well, it must have been because of logistics.
It must have been because of what she said. And I don't know, because she even in that previous episode, she said, like, I can't see myself leaving. And he said, I don't know if I can rectify that. So there was already some things that were said in the previous episode.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was heartbreaking. I think they still ended on the best note they could end on.
Yeah, I mean, a tearful goodbye hug, that's how it ended with the two of them. And then there was the blooper reel with all the
and I'm like, I don't need to see the bloopers. I don't need to see the previews. I want to just know who he picks at this point. Don't put me through this stupid heartbreak and not tell me which person it is. And I have 2 more episodes. I don't care anymore after Faith. Just tell me who he picks.
So we see previews for Fantasy Suites, which is episode 8, and they go to Costa Rica.
Yes. They go to Costa Rica. There's a waterfall. They're doing rock climbing.
And I guess sex. I'm guessing sex happens.
Potentially sex with someone. We don't know if it's with both. He says, I love you in person to Teresa. I wrote that down. That.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I don't know.
At this point, he has to say it.
He has to say it, right? Well, that's what I felt too.
Like, if you're saying it to everybody else, he's like, I guess I should say this too.
Yeah.
But we will find out what happens in the Fantasy Suites.
Yeah. It will be interesting, because apparently another dramatic decision is made, because you see, again, Gerry saying, I can't do this. I can't handle this. This is too much. This is so much pressure. So something either happens or doesn't happen during Fantasy Suites that solidifies his answer of who to pick. True. It'll be interesting. I really, though, hope that in the finale, he does not propose to whoever he picks. Just don't propose. Like, I don't know. Just take more time.
I prefer it too. We'll see. It's his choice. He has a lot more experience than us and a lot more time in his marriage than us. So he has the right to make that decision.
I guess. That's all we have for you. What we learned from week 7 is that the Golden Bachelor season 1 isn't all about falling in love with Gerry Turner. It's about finding hope, building friendships, and falling in love with yourself.
That's very sweet. I thought you were going to say losing faith, but that's fine.
I was going to do a faith pun, and then I thought, too soon, Liz, too soon.